y'all, Marvin here from Blacktop Banter. Really quick, just wanted to talk about the 800 Pavement Network. As you can see, we have some lettering there, lettering on our other truck over there, lettering on this truck here. They all say 1-800-Blacktop. We've been using the 1-800-Blacktop number here for the last couple years. It's really been exceptional for us as far as making things click with our branding, and now that we're in another state, those area codes are together. It's worked out fantastically for us. The other thing is that 800 Pavement Network has other advantages. There's group discounts on a lot of the products and materials that we use within our industry. We're part of over 300 different, see that one? Over 300 different contractors that are now using these numbers all over the country. That's combined over $2 billion in gross profits. So if you've been thinking about it or you're curious about it and you're like, well, oh, should I or shouldn't I? DM me, message me, or reach out to 800 Pavement Network. You can find them online through their website. You can call 1-800-Pavement and you'll get them as well. They'd be happy to run you through kind of the advantages and everything else that we've been taking advantage of here at Wiscote and Dubuque Asphalt Maintenance, and how it can benefit you as well. Once again, if you're curious about it at all, you can always DM me. So yeah, 1-800-Blacktop. You can DM me or message me or email me through the podcast or Wiscote or wherever as well. I would love to talk to you about how it has helped us. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Blacktop Banter. This is episode 75, and today I have a guest who's, him and I have talked quite a bit. We've become friends somewhat, and we've crossed paths now a couple times. I'm hoping we get to cross paths more in the future. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then talk about maybe how we met a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Marvin. First and foremost, it's fun being here, and something that obviously we've been chatting about for a while, as you said. Name's James Rowe, 23-year-old professional racing driver from Ireland, currently competing in Indy Lights in North America and in GT3, which is European Sports Car Series, in the Lamborghini Huracan. Proudly sponsored by the great organization that is TopCon.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we met, right?
Yeah, it is. It's World of Asphalt earlier this year in March in Nashville. We met there when we had the Formula Regional car on display in the Top Gun booth, and met you and your son, who's an awesome guy, and we started chatting about everything from pavement to motorsport and your interests. And
yeah,
I think what really struck us about you was how you and your boy went off go-karting later that day and did the video and put it on social. And, he was all energy. So once we see that type of energy, it's hard not to make something of it.
Yeah, and one thing you realize is, him and I being there, you get a family vibe, and when you're with TopCon, it's a complete family vibe. Like everybody is. Every time I've been around those guys in that company, it's been fantastic in that regard. One thing you and Elijah have a lot in common, because you guys are all go speed. Like, dude, this is what we like. This is what we like to talk about, see, and be interested in. Talk to us a little bit about how you got into racing. Like, how were you always inclined to be like, I want to go fast, and I want to go fast like right now? Or like, was it always, or did you slowly climb into this?
No, it's I guess it's a mix between the two. Always had an interest in motorsport and cars and speed. The family business in Ireland's a motor repair shop, so since I could walk, I've been around it. My family's always been involved in the motor industry. My uncle, Michael Rowe, had a professional career. He did, Le Mans and IMSA and Daytona,
Really?
and sports cars and IndyCar, and won the Can-Am Championship here in America in '84, and won a lot of big races throughout the globe. So his career naturally sparked an interest too. But growing up, I was, let's just say the normal kid, in the sense of played football, played soccer, played golf, like as kids do when they're growing up. You try everything, right?
Right.
But always had that interest and bug in me and related to cars and speed. I used to go to the family shop and be sitting in cars and pretend to drive when I'm like 4 years of age, and then I think I was like 7 years of age and I started driving or learned how to drive, and we used to always have what we call field cars back home. We have some fields around our house, and any car that was banged up in the family shop that wasn't worth fixing, Dad would bring home, and my brother would get to trash around the fields. That's where we learned to drive. So yeah, 8 years of age, learned there. And as I said, I always had the interest. I wanted to go racing. We had dirt bikes and go-karts, and every summer vacation we'd be on, you'd have to find a local go-kart track. But the reality is the sport is like no other, where it takes a major amount of funding and essentially assets to get involved in. It's not like baseball. We buy our baseball bat and some gear and away we go, or soccer, buy our boots and we go. You're talking cars, haulers, fuel, tires, engines, mechanics, engineers. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
So basically the deal was, my dad and uncle turned around and said, all right, you save up the money to purchase the car. We have the resources to run it out of the family repair shop, and your uncle has the knowledge to engineer and coach you, and we have the mechanics here in the shop. So that's the deal. So basically it took me till I was 14 years of age to get the money together to purchase my first race car. It was a car called a Janetta Junior. It was €5,000, which is about, given on the day, about $7,500, but right now they're pretty equal. Anyway, so I got that together, and that was just from working every summer job after school, doing whatever, man. Wherever I could earn money, I'd be there. So did all that, bought the car. We went out to our local racetrack in Ireland, only 2 miles from my house, the only one in Ireland, called Untitled Chapter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And, first race, we're on the podium, said, hey, we better take this a little more serious. And actually, I had just started. I was now 15 years of age, 14 or 15. And, I'd missed the boat essentially on the go-kart career that 90% of your IndyCar or Formula One or even top tier sports car drivers do. They all come through the go-karting ranks, and in some cases are karting globally at 8, 9, 10 years of age.
Yeah.
So I was quite old, and in the sense of when I started, but my racing years, I was very, very young. So we did 2 years in Ireland and Janetta Juniors, had wins and lap records in it, and then went to the UK and done Formula Ford 1600, which is the first step of open wheel racing in the UK. And yeah, enjoyed wins and lap records in it, learned a huge amount there. Then I always just had this vision and dream and goal. I wanted to come to the States and race over here, but I'd never been to the country, even on vacation. I had never stepped foot inside this country. But looking at the ladder system that was over here, the opportunity, the Irish American aspect, my family lived over here in the mid 80s when my uncle was racing over here in Canam. They all enjoyed it and had a lot of success over here. So the bug was there, and I just kept digging. Had to finish school was the deal. So finished high school and passed all of it. And I had the opportunity to go to college in Ireland like all my friends were doing, or pack up ship and move to the States. So I moved over here when I was 18 years of age. I'll never forget that, arriving over with 3 bags and the size of this country, and had an opportunity to race over here in F2000. But first and foremost, there was a shootout that took place between me and a number of drivers for that seat with the team. Okay. So arrived over, did the shootout, thankfully won the shootout, got the opportunity from the team, went to the F2000 here in the States in 2018. Had wins and lap records in it. And then it was that winter when I was very fortunate to meet with Top Gun and Ray O'Connor and get introduced to that world. And I also then turned professional that year, and because we did Formula 3 here in North America, and I got a scholarship from Ligier and Honda to compete in it. And now I guess the rest is history. We are where we are now. The Top Gun partnership has grown year in, year out, but only for them we wouldn't have progressed at the rate that we did. So we went from Formula 3 to Indy Pro 2000 last year on the road to Indy, and enjoyed success in it. And now here we are in Indy Lights. So it's been a super quick journey, really, really quick. And not just saying it because I'm on the podcast, but the reality is I wouldn't be where I am today without Top Gun and everything we do there. It's just been one of those whirlwind journeys, and I guess you could call it the perfect storm in the sense when we met, Smooth Ride was just being launched, and it's very relevant to my industry and what we do. And yeah, here we are. Hell of a journey.
Well, really, to be honest with you, you got your start dirt racing, right?
Yeah, I guess. And in an unconventional manner.
Yeah, in an unconventional manner, you were dirt racing, which is a phenomenon here, as well in the States. People love it. When I think about that, your journey where you just mentioned, hey, I started here, and in where are we, 8 years? You're
Say
23?
7 years now. Yeah.
11 years. Yeah. So
I'll say
7.
2015 race in Ireland, and now it's 2022. So
Yeah. So I mean, you
yeah.
think about that. I have to imagine, where you're like, man, we're in a whirlwind. A lot of that is based on you performing, right? So consistently, you've changed cars and different types and everything else all the way through. But consistently, James, you've been, performing enough where they're like, okay, we're investing. All right, we're going to build. We're going to go. We're going to shoot it. What was it like the first time you got behind the wheel of the Lamborghini? Did it feel, because you had been in the lights, did it feel big and clunky?
Yeah, it felt heavy. It just felt like a bus. Honestly, I was driving a semi or something. But yeah, no, it was very different. I got behind the wheel of that in November last year at a track called Cremona in northern Italy, and it was wet actually. The day we went out there, and yeah, it was cold, wet day in Italy, winter's day, November, dark, dreary, and they had a driver there to baseline me. Their main driver who drove for them last year, Italian guy called Alberto Di Folco, and yeah, jumped in. And honestly, I'll be dead straight with you. When the level of racing here in the States is so high, and especially on the road to Indy with Indy Pro 2000, Indy Lights, and to be up the front in either of those championships, you're on the limit. The guns to your head every day on every lap. And if you've a half an off day or you're driving a little bit reserved, you're 10th, 11th, 12th. That's where you are. So our style over here is it's attack mode. Every lap is on the limit. So getting into a car like that, yes, it was powerful. It was wet. So that added an element. But now you're dealing with traction control, which the single seaters don't have, and ABS. So getting used to it was honestly the biggest thing. How do I maximize the ABS to my advantage? And yeah, it was awesome. It was good. But as I said, once you master the single seaters over here and the style that's required to drive them, sometimes it's a little bit more relaxing in the GT world.
Well, let's take it back then a little bit to the Indy Lights, because they're what I hear, 700 pounds or 450 pounds, something like that.
7.
So 7. So we go from that to this. I want to talk about, and you kind of touched on, it was raining there in Italy. Talk about pavement conditions, like whether it's like, whether it's wet or raining and you're in an Indy Light car, or whether it's extremely hot, or whether it's, concrete or asphalt or whatever. Let's talk about a few of those and the different driving styles you have to have compared to different pavement conditions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a few questions in that question essentially. So yeah, obviously the pavement's the variable, and depending on the pavement and the way in which it was paved or the surface that you're dealing with depends on how those elements affect it. So the rain, the heat, let's say torrential rain, storms, it all affects it in different manners. So the reality is that the smoother the surface and the more consistent the surface is throughout, the less those variables affect it, because we're dealing with a consistent manner throughout the lap. It's when tracks are uneven, bumpy, paved maybe with different material throughout, or some tracks have a concrete here and asphalt there and so on and so forth, that's when those elements really become, as we use the word, sketchy or risky, because you're driving on different surfaces throughout a lap on the limit at over 150, 200 miles an hour. And it's the unknown factor that always creates the accidents or the elements of surprise. 9 times out of 10, if a guy has an incident, you say, what happens? Oh man, that caught me out, or that caught me out. And now all of a sudden it's a ripple effect. The driver's safety is on the line. The car is now damaged. There's big repair bills. The guy's not on track. The fans are now not seeing their guy on track. So it ripples throughout the board. So for us as drivers and as competitive people, we want a consistent surface throughout. So for instance, there's many tracks across the globe now where the surface, and there's parameters being set for the surface. There has to be a tolerance that you have to work within. So any of the modern tracks have been done, like Singapore Grand Prix track, Miami Grand Prix track, Silverstone, Zandvoort, even Spring Mountain here in the States. They've all been designed and built to a certain parameter. There's a tolerance level, but there's only a certain amount of people or equipment that can work within those parameters. And as you know, with Topcon, the reason why we speak the same language, I joke, is because we talk millimeters, and it's millimeter accuracy, and that's my world and that's Topcon's world. So the fact that you have an organization like Topcon who can go out and pave a racetrack to millimeter accuracy throughout, and there's no questions whatsoever over it, that gives the motorsport industry a huge sigh of relief from the driver's aspect and the safety. And we're pushing the limits at those speeds. We know what we're dealing with. We're dealing with millimeter precision. Then to the team and the engineering aspect, they now know what they can operate the car within. Obviously, we're always trying to maximize it. It's extremely competitive stuff we're doing. So you have engineers and data systems where they're figuring out tolerances. How low can we run the car? How much camber can we run? What springs can we run in the car? So that, again, the smoother the surface and the more consistent it is, that box that we are now working in becomes, you know, more and more inclined to lead to further performance. Whereas when you have variables, you're kind of limited in what you can do because there's no consistent manner. And then further to that, the event owners, promoters, and track owners, when they are dealing with a consistent surface, they're not worried about tracks being flooded or events being postponed due to standing water. Or you know, are they worried about that bump going into turn 12 for that Indy Lights car is going to take off and end up in the stand at 150 miles an hour? So on every aspect, it's an added bonus, and truthfully, it's where the industry is going. And it's as health and safety becomes more and more of a focus, and drivers respect our lives a lot more, and teams are now a lot more focused on safety. It's became, as I said, that industry standard.
Well, you know, when we think about when we were in Nashville together here a month ago, and you were racing that track, it would rain for an hour, then didn't rain for an hour, and then rain for an hour, and didn't rain for an hour, and then it was lightning. We had to go back and forth. One thing I noticed is when it was wet, and you guys went across the Cumberland, did the turnaround, and came back. There was sidewalk or crosswalks there, stop bars there, everything, and you could see the back end of the car, you know, turn. You know, the tires lost it on that paint. It's good, and you'd get a little bit, and you'd notice guys that were side by side, and one was maybe off the stop bar that it was tight in there with the rain off and on. When we talk about the surface, though, you had a very unique experience with Silverstone. Right. So you were able to race that track before it was repaved, and then you were one of the first ones to race it after it was repaved.
Right.
Right. So can you tell us about that experience and the difference? And then you know, Topcon was involved in that repave. Can you tell us about that experience?
So it was my years may be a little bit off, but I think it was 2017 when I raced there. It was in November at an event called the Walter Hayes Trophy. Really big event for Formula Ford 1600, over 150 entries every year. You're into heats and semi-finals and finals and so on and so forth. So it's November in the UK. Gets dark early and it rains a lot. There's the two things you can be sure of going to the UK in November. So you're dealing with an event that had a really tight schedule due to the entries. We were there racing, always fine. The track was okay, nothing special. The layout was fine. You could see it age a little bit. Right. But long story short, just before the semi-final, it absolutely poured down rain, heavens open. And the track was flooded. You know, there was standing water absolutely everywhere throughout it. So now the event was postponed, put on hold, delayed. So you had all these guys that flew in from the world, 150 drivers, never mind the teams and the equipment that goes hanging around, not knowing what's going on. But we're all just delayed due to standing water because the fact that we couldn't go on track from a health and safety standpoint. Now we're battling against daylight because it gets dark like 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the UK at that time of the year. So long story short, the event was delayed, postponed, fans were leaving. It was put onto the next day, onto Sunday. Now the event is backlogged. The promoters are under extreme amount of pressure. Drivers and teams, let's say, are agitated. You know, we're in our weekend, we're in our zone. We don't want to be dealing with this. We want to keep going.
Right.
So the water cleared off the next day and the event went on. Then after that, as I said, there was money lost. Drivers and teams weren't so happy. There was a risk factor to it and so on and so forth. So the track got repaved not so long after that. And MotoGP was next up. So they came over, the world equivalent of Formula One. And they basically went out and the guys came in and said, we can't drive this track. It's too bumpy. I don't know what sort of pavement was done on it, but this ain't right. So basically there was a big issue now. Not only was the old surface not safe and costing the circuit money and the drivers' safety on the line, now the MotoGP guys came on their motorbikes and said this is undrivable. Guys were like refusing to go out on the track and it just been repaved. Millions of dollars spent on it. So long and the short, Top Gun came along with Smooth Ride and they were brought in to scan the racetrack and see what they could do about it. And obviously with the tolerances that Top Gun works within, they came up with a very straightforward and easy solution to get the track right. And the beauty of Smooth Ride being that how fast it can scan a racetrack. You know, they could scan Silverstone in 20 minutes to, 40 minutes, maybe. You know, 2 or 3 passings of it, scanning thousands of points. Now all of a sudden they have their model. And the way in which Smooth Ride works, I'm not sure if you know, is it creates the minimal amount of tolerance that's required to make that given surface smooth again. So obviously it bucks the trend of going and, let's say, taking 1 inch or 2 inches off across the track the whole way around. As you can imagine, we're talking about maybe a 3 or 4 mile track total.
Oh yeah.
Not only is it the time of the circuit being shut down to scan it to get that, then the guys coming in to plane it and take all the material away to get that material away from the track. Now you're ordering hundreds of tons of material to come in and
the trucking, the construction, everything
that goes with it to get this surface smooth. So they came in, scanned it probably in half an afternoon, if even you could even do it over lunchtime, came up with their points, their 3D scan, said, okay, this is the minimal amount of tolerance that's needed to make this place smooth. Here's your model. They then partnered with a company called Tarmac, who are out of the UK, and Tarmac came in, repaved it based off Smooth Ride technology and Top Gun's numbers and parameters. And the track was repaved. Everyone was happy, walked away. Formula One then came and nothing was said about it. It was awesome. Lap records were set like 2 or 3 seconds faster than the previous layout.
Yeah.
And we came along and raced again that following year, and it was a one-off. But again, too, we were 2 or 3 seconds a lap faster. And nothing has been said since because they got the drainage right, they got the flow-offs right, the surface is now smooth, and everything has ran smoothly throughout. In fact, only last year, Silverstone had their biggest attendance for the British Grand Prix in many, many years. So there was a whole ripple effect of that then, was in our industry, word travels very, very fast.
Yeah. Yeah. In our
saying,
industry too. It does in our industry too.
Yeah. Do you realize how fast Silverstone is now? This track's awesome. Teams are raving about it. Engineers are raving about it. Drivers are raving about it. Promoters are biting at their
want it. Yeah.
They wanted it. They knew this place is now consistent. And then it just transpired to where Smooth Ride has now been involved in, as I said, Singapore Grand Prix track, Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi, the new section that was paved of it, actually where Max Verstappen made his move for the last lap gasp for the championship last year into that side hairpin on the left. That was paved by Smooth Ride. Spring Mountain here in the USA, Miami Grand Prix track, Zandvoort, the list goes on. And that basically was in 2017/18 window, and here we are now in 2022, and it's the industry standard, and it's just purely down to millimeter accuracy, and it's a results-based business on our front and on the paving side.
Yeah, on the asphalt side. The crazy thing is to think that they did it so simply, and it wasn't a huge undertaking, and it wasn't a pain in the neck. Like, it was just literally, hey, we'll go in there, check out where we can make this thing better, come in and do it just like this. They did it. It was over with. Everybody's happy. Like, there's no complaints. There's no anything about it.
Well, I think honestly, and again, some listeners may think it's a one-sided or a biased opinion, but what I notice at TopCon, whether it's on the motorsport side of what we're doing and our events with clients and guests, or whether it's business introductions and stuff we're working on, or whether it's truthfully with the client, is this all really matters to them, the whole way up through the organization, from CEO level right the way down to the receptionist at the door on the way in.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of passion in the organization where things have to be done right, and successful projects mean a lot to the organization, and success on my side means a lot to the organization, and successful projects like Silverstone means a lot to the organization. So when you have a group of individual or a team of 4,000 people across the globe, that what they're doing really means something to them, that's when you see these kind of results, because there's pride in what we do, and there's passion in what we do. And I think in this day and age, it's very, very unique where you see that in such a corporation, that there's pride in their projects. It's not just, oh, this is another project, we're going to go and repave it, this is what we do. Yeah, that's what we're known for.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of passion and pride that comes from that successful project, and that's spoken about across the globe. And I think that's probably the limiting factor, and that's what continues to push the organization to search for new products, new boundaries, looking for limitations, seeing what people need out there, and then coming up with solutions. It's a results-based business, as I keep saying.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we noticed, just us being a guest of TopCon this last time, is how fluid everything is. Like all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. Like I'm normally in a situation where I have to keep checking, right, and make sure, hey, is this time going to be right? Is this going to be here? Is this going to be set? And our main guy, Cedric, was like, yeah, it's all taken care of. And literally everything was fluid, smooth. Everything went great. To be honest with you, the worst pain we had was the rain. And once in a while you get.
Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that.
No, TopCon does that. Boy, they're going to be really, really high standards if they can do something about that. So, let's real quick talk about where people can find you online, James. I want to make sure that we don't forget that. On Instagram, LinkedIn, like all that stuff, right?
Yeah, so you'll find me on Instagram at JamesRowe9, and then also at James Rowe on Facebook and Twitter, and then James Rowe on LinkedIn. You can get me too. So across the board on all social channels, I'm there. Rowe is spelled R-O-E. That's often a misconception. Which, I don't really understand. It bothers me a little bit. Anyway, so yeah, that's R-O-E, and you'll find us there on my website, jamesrowejr.com.
Real quick, a real simple piece of advice for chasing goals, because obviously you knew when you started racing that, hey, I didn't have a career like all these other guys did, but you're running with these world-class drivers right now. What's a good piece of advice, do you think, for somebody who's first off, like trying to do something like you said, where it's like, you go to college, or I did this. What do you think would be a good piece of advice for people?
I think first and foremost, doing what you love or where your passion is, because then it's not classified as work or a big grind every day. When you wake up, if you're doing what you love or what you believe in, or it's your passion, it's not work. So for me, I work 7 days a week on my career and 10 or 12-hour days. But I think just the bottom line is you work for what you get, period, no matter what you're doing, whether it's my industry, whether it's on the TopCon side of things with product development or sales or client entertainment or whatever it is, or whatever anyone's role is. If it's in the business world and you're a banker, or whatever that is, or I don't know, or you're a
podcast host
or a podcast host, whatever it is, literally, you run a sweet shop, you work for what you get, right? And you put in the work, you get results. That's basically it. And I always find hard work overcomes all. Talent will get you so far, but hard work is what makes the difference.
Yeah, and as much as you and I wanted to hang out at Nashville, I knew when you were down to business, like it was time, like, come out, shake hands, say, hey, it's good to see you, but like, we got some stuff to do here. And man, like this, it means business. Like we're putting in the work right now. We're going to get one shot at this. We want
Yeah.
to make sure we put our best foot forward.
Yeah. No, that's
And hey, I didn't feel like you gave me the cold shoulder. I was just like, this is what I like to see. Like like we want people to be determined, man.
we were in Nashville to do a job, and
That's right.
that's how we operate, you know. And I think it's the same with any big leaders or you know, organizations. You get to a certain level and it's time to get down to business. You know, we're here to get the job done. So that's, you caught me in the moment there, but then an hour or two after the race, we had
a good time. We got to hang out and have a good time. Do you find it hard to flip that switch? Or as soon as you put your helmet on and sit in that seat, are you James Rowe? I'm going for
No, I think this is what I'm trying to master. It's very, very hard to master. You have 2 or 3 personalities. You have James Rowe that hangs out with his friends and his family at home and you know, grabs a beer at my buddies or whatever. And then you have James Rowe, the racing driver, who's, once he puts his helmet down, he's kill or be killed. And you're right.
And you got James Rowe that shakes hands with Marvin and says,
yeah, and then you got James Rowe, the if you want to call it the
hospitality
or
you
know,
businessman. I like the businessman term a lot better.
Well, that's really what it is. It's business.
Yeah, and you're good at it. You're good at it. That's what.
So it's trying to balance everything, and sometimes it can be difficult. But again, as I keep boiling back to, when you're doing what you love and you love what you do, it's not necessarily that hard, you know. And when you're surrounded by good people, that's the other thing I would add, is just once you're around great people, everything becomes a lot smoother. So for me,
well, you're welcome. I wish I could be at every ways, but you know, I'll be able to. Real quick before I let you go, I want to do something fun. We're gonna do a pod deck. I'm gonna shuffle these up real quick, and I'm gonna ask you a question out of here. So most of the time, I go ahead and take the first question, but sometimes if I don't like it, I'll draw another one. But I just cut the deck in half. See, all right, here we go. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, damn.
That's
tricky because I got weight to meet in season and off season. I don't. So it depends.
Off season.
Oh, I would have to go with one food.
Something from home?
Yeah, maybe.
Or
no,
not?
I'm gonna keep simple pizza.
Pizza?
Joe's Pizza in New York. It's a good spot.
Do you like you know, sometimes I'll have combat guys on and they have to make weight, and then like right after the fight they want this sitting right.
Oh yeah.
Is that what it's like? Is that what Joe's
burger,
like?
double cheeseburger?
Yeah, that's American, man. That's,
I know. I'm here too long. I go back home now and people think I'm not Irish anymore. It's really
well, when you're here we still think you're Irish because we can't deny it. So my friend, thank you very much for joining me for this. I appreciate you doing this mid-season. I know you have a crazy schedule. From somebody who has a crazy schedule to somebody else, I really, really appreciate it and making it work. Hopefully we get together soon again. I would really appreciate that. And it's always a blast. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you, and we thoroughly enjoy it.
Awesome, my man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries. For myself and for my friend James Rowe, this is Blacktop Banter. This has been episode 75. And here at Blacktop Banter and at TopCon, we speak asphalt. Thanks.